This is the war you were never meant to name. They told you this was history, something finished, something buried, something to read about, test on, and move past. But history does not behave like that. History leaves fingerprints, it leaves patterns, it leaves systems. And if you follow those patterns long enough, you begin to see something deeper than isolated events. You begin to see design. What you are about to hear is not just a song, it is a reflection of a pattern that has existed for generations, a pattern that has shaped lives, communities, economies, and identities, a pattern that did not begin with you, but one that still touches you. To understand it, you have to go back, not just to moments, but to meaning. There was a time when people were taken from their land, their names, their languages, and their systems of knowledge, not because they were weak, but because they were valuable. Labor was extracted, knowledge was used, culture was observed, studied, and repurposed. Entire economies were built on the backs of people who were never meant to benefit from what they created, and when that system could no longer exist in its original form, it did not disappear. It evolved. What once looked like chains began to look like laws. What once looked like ownership began to look like limitation. What once looked like force began to look like structure. And structure is harder to see because structure doesn't shout, it organizes. After emancipation, freedom existed on paper, but access did not. Communities were restricted, opportunities were controlled, resources were distributed in ways that determined who could build and who would struggle to begin. Lines were drawn, not always visibly, but effectively. Neighborhoods shaped by policy, wealth shaped by access, education shaped by location, and over time, these patterns became normalized. So normalized that many stopped questioning how they started. At the same time, another system began to take shape, one that did not rely on visible chains, but on cycles. Cycles of limitation, cycles of enforcement, cycles that made it easier to enter than to exit. What looked like individual outcomes often reflected broader conditions. And yet, the narrative shifted. Responsibility was individualized. Context was minimized. Patterns were ignored. Because if you acknowledge the pattern, you have to ask difficult questions. And difficult questions make people uncomfortable. So the story became simpler, too simple. It became about choices without context, outcomes without origin, struggles without structure. But if you look closely, the pattern never left. It adapted to the moment. Technology introduced new forms of observation. Data introduced new forms of influence. Economics introduced new forms of control, not always obvious, but always present. At the same time, something else continued, creation. Despite every limitation, culture expanded. Music, language, innovation, and expression shaped the world in ways that cannot be erased. Influence spread globally. What was once localized became universal. What was once dismissed became dominant. And still, recognition did not always follow contribution. Stories were told without full context. Credit was shifted. Origins were blurred, but the impact remained undeniable. Because you cannot erase influence once it has moved through the world. You can rename it, you can repackage it, but you cannot remove it. And this is where the conversation deepens. Because what you are seeing is not just a sequence of events, it is a pattern of interaction between power, access, and recognition. A pattern that raises questions. Who builds? Who benefits? Who decides? Who remembers? And more importantly, who is seen clearly and who is not? As time moved forward, conversations around equality, representation, and opportunity began to rise. Voices grew louder. Awareness expanded. More people began to question what had long been accepted. And with that awareness came tension. Because when systems are questioned, they do not always respond with ease. They respond with resistance, not always direct, sometimes subtle, sometimes through policy, sometimes through perception, sometimes through the way stories are framed and repeated. And in moments of tension, something else happens. Distraction, conversations shift, focus changes, energy is redirected, people begin to argue with each other instead of examining the structure itself. And that is one of the most effective ways to maintain a system. Keep the focus divided, because division delays clarity. But clarity always finds its way back. And right now, in this moment, more people are beginning to see patterns again across industries, across communities, across experiences, patterns in opportunity, patterns in outcomes, patterns in who advances and who is held back. And when those patterns begin to align across different areas, they become harder to dismiss. This is not about pointing fingers. It is about recognizing systems. It is about asking what has been consistent, what has changed now, and what has not. Because if something continues to produce similar outcomes over time, it deserves to be examined, not ignored, not simplified, examined. And that examination requires honesty. Honesty about history, honesty about structure, honesty about how the past connects to the present. Because the past does not stay behind us. It shapes the foundation we stand on. And if the foundation is uneven, the structure reflects it. So what do you do with this awareness? You don't turn away from it. You don't rush to argue it. You sit with it. You observe. You connect the dots. And once you see it clearly, something shifts. You begin to recognize patterns faster. You begin to question narratives more deeply. You begin to understand that not everything is random. And once that awareness is there, you cannot unsee it. You carry it into conversations. You carry it into decisions. You carry it into the way you interpret the world around you. And that is where change begins. Not in denial, not in avoidance, but in awareness. Because awareness is the first step toward anything different. And that is what this moment represents. Not just reflection, but recognition. What you're about to hear is not just music, it is a continuation of this conversation, a reminder of resilience, a reflection of survival, a statement of presence, because no matter how systems shift, evolve, or attempt to redefine reality, there's something that remains constant: endurance, creation, expansion, and existence. This is not just about the past, this is about understanding the present, so you can decide what comes next. This is the war you were never meant to name.
They told you this was history, that this was a war you could not see, a war you could not name, a war that never ended. They ain't target us cause we was weak, they targeted the power that we speak. Resilient spirits deep in our veins, creative minds they could not restrain. Communal love that built the base, spiritual roots they could not trace. Fear of the unknown turned into hate, jealousy mixed with a confused state. You don't suppress what don't exist, you don't oppress what you don't resist. They practice systems on our skin, they scaled it out to trap them in. That ain't control, surveillance eyes, modern chains in a new disguise. This was designed, it was not by chance. Our system built on our circumstance. Don't dress this up like an accident, don't flinch when the truth gets said. Let it sit where the pain been living. You can't heal what you won't live. It's the war on black existence. We survive with no permission. They tried to break us, we expanded, built the world with empty hands. And this the war they never mentioned. Still we rise in every dimension. You can't kill what was divinely given. We still here, now we still living. Stay home, they say this ain't our fight, this they house, let them face they night. We ain't built this broken frame, we ain't right that burning flame. They chose power over peace, now they watching it decrease. Kings of ashes crowned in pride, while the truth they try to hide. Brother fighting brother in the same bloodline, tearing down what they designed. We ain't fixing what we ain't break, let them sit with what they make. That cycle heavy, let it spin. We stepping back, not stepping in. It's the war on black existence. We survive with no permission. They tried to break us, we expanded, built the world with empty hands. And it's the world they never mentioned. Still we rise in every dimension. You can't kill what was divinely given. We're still here and we still living. You mean to tell me this was skins, after centuries of what they did? Nah, it's deeper than the surface talk. It's something in the way we walk, something in the way we feel, something in the way we heal. They studied us, then turned away, never never told the truth, they saw the day. Melanin rich, wicked then cold, ancestral past and sacred roles. Connection strong to the most high light. They fear the power that can't rewrite. Everything built from our heads, inventions written out the pledge. Then took the credit, changed the name, but still could not remove the flame. This ain't hate, this revelation. 'Cause that deep awakening, what you feel ain't just a guess. It's that truth they suppress. It's the war on black and tears. We survive with no pain. Trying to break us, we stand and build the world within. It's the one death they conceal, and now the whole world see the feeling. You can't stop what we're always living. Still winning, we still winning. With the grins that made them sing. Turned the image, something clean. World looked at us, I felt the grace. Saw humanity in our face. User carried through the pain. Love feel flowing through the rain. We made them look like they could grow, even when they didn't know. Now the mask been pulled away. Truth is loud, they can't delay. Breeding hate on full display. Every lie's on replay. While we built, they burned it down. Now the world don't trust the crown. We was proof that love could stand. Now they question the whole land. This was never just a story. This was never just the past. This was a war, and we are still here. They told you this was history. They told you this was history. They told you. They told you. They told you. They told you this was history.